In India, as we all know, marriage is between two families. So when it is one of those marriages, then you have the alimony, the meher decided mutually. It is to be paid immediately to the woman in order to institutionalize the nikah. Shabano was busy raising her children. She was devoted to her family, to her house, and she was never paid for it. There is, of course, the Sharia law where triple talaq existed. Now in India, it has been made illegal. The alimony verdict by the Supreme Court is being hailed as a landmark judgment. People are quick to come to conclusions that this will now empower Muslim women. They will have access to alimony. There are more ways than one that they can get this entitlement. We will take a closer look at the issue. You're watching Viewpoint. I am Afrida Rahman Ali. The thing about alimony in Muslim marriages, one must understand that here it's the other way around. It's the men who pay the dowry, the meher, as it is called in Islam, the meher to the woman at the time of marriage. The meher is decided mutually on mutually agreed terms, amicably, ideally, by both parties. In India, as we all know, marriage is between two families. So when it is one of those marriages, then you have the alimony, the meher decided mutually. It is to be paid immediately to the woman in order to institutionalize the nikah. Basically, it is mandatory for meher to be paid to the woman, which is why I said it's like the dowry, where the man has to pay. The groom has to pay to the bride at the time of getting married for the nikah to be solemnized. Now, it's a different matter that in a lot of these cases, in a lot of these marriages, the meher is never paid up front. It's just a commitment that is made, which actually is wrong, but we'll leave that aside for now. Coming to the point about meher, as of now, it is true that Muslim marriages, if it is dissolved, the only obligation that a husband has is to pay the meher, which, as I said, would have been paid at the time of marriage. So there is no financial obligation whatsoever except for the period of iddat, which is a period of 3 months after the marriage is dissolved, after the talaq or the divorce. That maintenance is paid after that period, because that's the period of separation before the divorce is formally accepted. Beyond that period, there is no financial obligation of the husband to pay any maintenance beyond the meher. That is how it is in the religious personal law. Now the question is, as a citizen of this country, do I have access to the other secular laws related to the divorce? This is simply what the Supreme Court has answered in a resounding yes. You can have access to the regular maintenance laws that comes under the Indian Penal Code, that comes under the Indian CrPC, which of course is a good move. It is something that would open out more avenues for a Muslim divorced woman to seek alimony, because now we have to go back to the Shabano case to understand this even better. Shabano was divorced in the year 1975. She got married in the year 1932. So after like a 50-year marriage, her husband divorced her. She was in her 70s at that point of time, and she of course approached the court for alimony, for maintenance, and the court said she has right to maintenance. That was overturned. That's part of history. We know how the Congress government still has to face that accusation of minority appeasement, why they overturned the Supreme Court judgment, brought in this law of 1986, Muslim Women Protection Act, under which it was said that the religious personal law is supreme. So should there be a clash of opinions, if one spouse is citing the religious personal law, the other spouse is citing the law of the land, the religious personal law will supersede. Now, this has happened, of course, because of a lot of protests that took place in the Shabano case. I'm not going to go into that. Now, in a way, again, 40 years later, it is the Supreme Court overturning what was overturned and saying that no, the woman has access to both. You can access your religious personal law and whatever is the alimony provision there. You can also appeal to the law of the land. Nothing stops you from doing that. Yes, it has made things easier, but let me just put in a word of caution here, that in Muslim marriages, what was seen as of now is that divorces were simpler, because you just have to cover that period, and there is no maintenance ka jhanjat, and therefore the woman, one would think, is therefore gets out of the marriage easily without having to go through those long winding court battles which is there in the other, uh, if you are not a Muslim, you have to go through the regular law of the land, then it's a long winding process, long struggle. If you're Muslim marriage, you simply cite your religious personal law and you get your divorce done in 3 months. You're done and dusted. Is it a good thing? Was it a good thing so far? Now I realize that, think about a woman, even Shabanu for that matter. Say your alimony is 1 lakh rupees on the date of your marriage. 50 years later, what would be the value of that money? I mean, you don't factor in inflation. There is no such provision in Islam that says that, okay, now that will have to, of course, be calculated. No, because you're paying that at the time of institutionalizing the marriage. So now I think we can see how unfair this is on the woman. It's a conspiracy to keep her confined to the marriage, make it as difficult as possible. And then when she wants to exit the marriage, the alimony becomes like, you reduced to a beggar. You have to request for that money on humanitarian grounds because your religious personal law is not giving you that. And think about what that could do to a woman. She would rather stay in the marriage because she's not financially independent. The court has done a huge service to this nation by actually making certain other observations about how a woman gives up everything to be of service to her family. All those years, Shabanu was busy raising her children. She was devoted to her family, to her house, and she was never paid for it. And then comes the occasion when she's asked to leave with her 5 children, and all she has is a pittance of a meher to fall back upon. So yes, this is an important judgment. I would also urge, I am a Muslim woman myself, and I should tell my other fellow Muslim married women that it is a very good idea to be very well versed with the Islamic law. There's a lot of provision for a lot of things which we are unaware or we do not implement. And that is also because of the social conditioning. For example, there is something called a nikah nama. In Islam, nikah or marriage is a contract, which is why there is this issue of having to pay the meher, because it's a contractual agreement. Think about a young girl in her 20s, you don't do anything with the nikah nama that you're supposed to do. In the nikah nama, you are entitled to set provisions for divorce. You are entitled to put in your conditions for divorce. So I don't have a single instance, unfortunately, of anyone I know who at the time of marriage have set those conditions. Can you even think of a young girl would do that and tell her prospective in-laws that here are my conditions for divorce? Nobody does that. But that provision is there in the nikah nama if a woman chooses to do so. Divorce, the right to divorce is given equally to the man and the woman. There is no provision for regressive things like triple talaq is mentioned in the Quran. All these things came via back doors, from other sources. There is, of course, the Sharia law where triple talaq existed. Now in India, it has been made illegal. So a lot of these things have existed also because of the clergy, also because of Muslim Personal Law Board. They need these sort of issues for their sustenance, for them to remain relevant. So if, like I said, a woman understands what is there in the religious personal law, there are a lot of provisions, a lot of facility to seek respite, to seek remedy for the problems that you could have. But it is important to be aware. But then yes, many a times society, even if you're aware, does not facilitate, does not enable you to apply, to implement that. So that's my opinion on this, and that's my limited observation on this issue. Thanks for watching.